right, good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate you joining today's press conference with Auburn head coach Bryan Harsin. We'll let Coach make an opening comment, and then we'll take questions. Coach?
All right, well, first thing, we had a couple players in the last game that were injured, Bo Nix being one of them, who had a successful surgery today on his ankle, so that's positive. He's out and on the mend now. Anders Carlson had an ACL in this last game as well, so he'll have surgery here shortly. And a couple of our starting players that were injured in the game, and then now we're just moving forward and get those guys healed up, and then we'll have some guys that will have to step up and get their opportunities as we go into this week against South Carolina. So, but both those guys are good spirits, and it's unfortunate what happened to them, and those guys have handled it well, and guys on the team know what we need to do in order to have guys step up and be able to fill those roles and get ourselves ready to play in this next game. As far as the last game goes, just a little recap on that. I thought we were ready to play in the first half, came out and started fast, did some really good things. And then at halftime, really from that point on, I thought in the second half, when Mississippi State went down and scored, they created some momentum. We needed to get that momentum back in the second half, and the execution, just overall finishing, making plays like we did in the first half, didn't show up in the second half. There's some penalties, some blown plays, some missed opportunities, but at the end of the day, we needed to finish the game. That was what we had talked about going into it, and competing for 4 quarters and playing our best football for 60 minutes, all the things you talk about each and every week, making sure that was a mission of every player that stepped on the field, and that did not happen in the game. So we're going to learn from that. We've already watched it. We put it away. We take that and use that information moving forward against South Carolina and get ourselves ready to play this week. So with that, questions.
First question is from Christian Clemente.
Bryan, Bo got kind of hurt there at the end of the third, and then he was able to come back in for a couple more drives. What do you think that says about him and just kind of his toughness to go back out there and play on that ankle injury?
Yeah, well, that's, the first thing we talk about, the quarterback position, is toughness. And, there's no question with that with Bo, and I've said that before. He was injured on a long throw that he had made, continued that drive, came out, got looked at, was able to go back into the game and play, and, was available to do that. So, one is, Bo is he's a tough individual, number one. He wants to win, he wants to succeed, he wants to be a part of that. Says a lot about just, his desire to be out there with his teammates and to provide whatever he can from that position to try to help us win. I love that. I love the attitude. Unfortunately, he was injured, and he'll be out the rest of the season. But he's got a great attitude about it. So, from the surgery today, his recovery moving forward, that's going to be the focus. Just making sure that he's good, gets himself healthy, gets himself back into the rhythm as we get into some of the off-season work and things like that moving forward, and then supporting his teammates. That's going to be a part of his role right now, and he'll do a great job of that. And then, we'll move forward with TJ, and he'll be ready to play, and we'll get the game plan put together for him, and then we'll move forward with that.
Jordan Hill.
And Bryan, on TJ, just what have you seen from him so far since Saturday? And then with Anders being out, do you guys know who you want to handle kickoff duties and then field goal duties?
Yeah, we're going to work through that with our specialists. So not right now. I'm not ready to make that decision yet on exactly what direction we're going to go. As far as TJ, he's like every other backup quarterback that I've been around. He prepares like a starter. He goes out there and practices like a starter, and then, you never know when your opportunity is going to happen. And so you just have to be ready for that. Is it, unfortunately, an injury? Is it going to be a chance to get in the game and try to go make a difference? you never know what that is, so you're always preparing. So he's done all those things. Now it's his opportunity to go out there and play the entire game and have a chance to prepare and practice with the reps this week, like the starter, and or as the starter, I should say, and get himself ready to go through a great week of preparation going into this game. So as far as his mindset, all that, he's been very good. Now he's got to go out there and do it in practice, and then needs to show up in the game.
Tom Green.
Hey, Brian. Obviously, you mentioned TJ will be the guy going forward, but has there been any discussion about maybe working Demetrius Davis in some, especially with no worries about having to burn a red shirt for him?
No, not right now. We haven't had those conversations.
Nathan King.
Brian, going back to the play with Bo, you said he came out in the third quarter and was evaluated. Was it something when y'all looked back at it, did he go back in and get re-injured, or was it just something where after the game you realized it was a little bit worse than you had thought on the sideline?
I don't really know that. He played obviously after he went back in. I don't recall if there was another hit or something else in there, but after the game when they went back and evaluated it, that's what they found, and so I think it was on that play. I don't think there was something else that happened in there, but moving around and running around and doing all those things, even taking a drop and stuff like that, I don't know how much more that aggravated what had happened to him, but the injury came on that play in the third quarter where he got hit. And Bo, as he went back in there to him and he stood in the pocket, he threw the ball well. He gave us opportunities to make plays, there's no doubt about it, and we didn't make those plays in those moments for us to continue drives and to have a chance to go down there and score and do the things like we did in the first half.
Michael Gittens.
Coach, can you talk about the moment where you have a player get injured in a game like yesterday? What's that process like? I know Bo's a competitor, so he's probably telling you he can go. The medical staff is evaluating him. What is your role in that process, and how do you make the decision about whether to let the player go back out there?
Listen to the medical staff. That's it. That's why they're there.
Coach, can I follow up? So medical staff telling you that he was good to go, and then you found out later that his ankle was broken?
Yeah, that's what the medical staff assesses our players, and then those guys make decisions whether guys are able to go back in or not during a game, and then there's assessments after the game.
Justin Hokanson.
Hey, Brian. What went into the decision to put TJ in the last drive? Was it a 9-point game and you just thought Bo couldn't go anymore? Or, he played those 3 drives and then you weren't sure until after about the broken ankle. So what was the decision there?
Yeah, I didn't think that he could go anymore and at that point. And then, TJ tried to get a little bit of a spark, but really it came back to Bo. Just could he go or not? He was limping around pretty good at that point in the game. So we got TJ ready. He had been ready too. So first time Bo came out, he's kind of warming up, getting himself loose. And then at that point in the game, it didn't feel like or look like Bo could really go. So TJ was going to obviously be ready to go and get him in the game. And at that point too, can we get a spark? Can we get the ball down the field? Can we make something happen? Because we needed to. We were now in that situation where we got to score, get the ball back, and try to score again quickly, get a field goal at that point. So it really came down to that.
Bennett Durando.
Hey, Brian, you talked about both sort of being in good spirits. What conversations have you had with him these last couple of days about how he's sort of is handling the situation and what's his involvement going to be with sort of working with TJ and the team these last few weeks?
Yeah. Well, those conversations are between Bo and I, but he's in good spirits. There to support him, like his teammates and the other coaches on this staff are doing. When guys get injured, that's what you do. You support them, and the next step is, go have your surgery and get yourself healthy. There is a human element to this. And so that part of it, that's the focus. And then after the surgery, we'll regroup and we'll focus on what comes next and what he has to do and those type of things. But that wasn't the initial conversation right after he was injured, like what we have to do moving forward. It was just, hey, take care of yourself, make sure you're good, family's there. Let's get through the surgery, and then we'll get on the other side of it and we'll figure out what the plan is moving forward.
Bill Cameron.
As State was gaining momentum, was the thought process to just sort of stick with what had worked earlier, or make some drastic adjustments? And also, you didn't sub an awful lot there on the defensive front. Is it a situation where you weigh a drop off in talent compared to guys possibly being gassed?
What was the first part of your question?
Just about as State was gaining the momentum, what adjustments were made?
Yeah, I got you. State. As far as the things that we had done early, we felt like those things would work. And, they showed up on tape. If you go back and study the game, those things that we had called in the first half were there in the second half. We didn't execute and make the plays in some of those situations. Defensively, with the pass rush, I thought we had the best players on the field at that time to get after the quarterback. Their O-line did a good job. And there were some things that we did to mix up some of the ways to get pressure on the quarterback. And, to not take anything away from their QB, he played really well in the second half too. Threw the ball well. And their receivers, as you're talking about momentum, they made plays. And what you have to do in a game is understand when momentum shifts, you got to find a way to get it back. You need to make a play. You need to put yourself in a position to try to get them off the field. And then for our offense, you got to continue scoring. That's kind of the tale of two halves in this game. You come out and you're playing hard, you're playing fast, you're making plays. In the second half, that has to continue. That's what we have to understand as a team. You can't coast your way through the rest of the game once you come out there and have a great first half and put points on the board and then expect somebody else to make plays as they kind of gain momentum and put themselves back in a position to get themselves back in the game. When we had however many drives unanswered with points, you got to score. You got to score points. You got to keep scoring. You got to be able to do that. That's the responsibility of the offense. You got to stop teams from scoring and get them off the field. That's the responsibility of the defense. And then special teams, you got to try to create field position and opportunities somewhere to change the game. And we had some penalties on special teams that took that momentum out of what we were doing. And so there's a few of those in the game that were the penalties that allowed Mississippi State to stay on the field, which, we'll get the review on that, and I'm sure we'll know what the answer is, after looking at them. But doesn't help you in the middle of a game. So there are some factors in there that you have to overcome, and that's just something as a team that we have to do a better job of. I've got to do a better job of helping our team and everybody understand those things in the game are going to happen, and how we respond and overcome those is part of the development of our team right now, and we didn't do a good job of that. So as far as our discipline, focus, our ability to finish, we took a step back. And, 2 games now where we haven't had the performance as a team that we'd want. So, that falls back on me and falls back on, how this team operates leading into the game, how we're going to perform before we ever step on the field, and understanding all the factors it takes to actually go out there and win games in this league, and then ultimately consistently when you go out there and play. So, we work hard. I mean, the effort and stuff like that is there, but those other factors that really make teams, in my opinion, great, we're not showing that, and we have to continue to keep working on that. And guys got to focus on it. Staff has to focus on it. I've got to do a better job of making sure that those things that we emphasize are getting through to everybody, and that it shows up on game day, and we actually do those things through the course of the game.
Tobias Wilborn.
Bryan, thanks for the time as always. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing as well as possible. Going back to that game, the pass to Johnson, what did you see on that play now that you had the opportunity to watch it on film? What did you see happen? Looked like him Looked like the lineman number 94, Knicks, got tangled up. What did you see on that play that ultimately ended up ending Knicks' season?
What you said there, I mean, just one of their guys falling into him. You know, it's one of those, as the quarterback throws it, you're throwing the ball down the field, you're going to be in the pocket a little bit longer, somebody falls into the QB, you know, and a lot of times you get knocked over, you get knocked back, whatever it is. You know, as you stand in the pocket and deliver, things like that will happen. Somebody gets pushed into you. In this case, it got pushed into his leg and just fell on his ankle there. And, you know, those things happen too. There's not always, when you come out, you know, you fall down, you get up, and, you know, it's kind of one of those routine plays where you get hit, you get back up, and you go on to the next play, and there's not an injury in there. So, but you never know. That's one of the things about, you know, the game. You just never know. Guys get injured, and sometimes it looks like something he's done 1,000 times, and it just, as the result of that play, it was an injury. So that's really what it came down to. I don't think there was anything, you know, much out of the ordinary when it came to that play right there. It just happened to be kind of the wrong spot, wrong time, and probably positioning, you know, as a player. That's kind of what happens when you get in those type of injuries. And, you know, when your feet are planted in the game, like, you always try to, you know, run your feet. You're always trying to move your feet because guys get wiped out, and that helps you and keeps you from hopefully having like a lower leg injury throughout a game and even through practice. And sometimes when you're planted and you get hit just right, you know, things happen. And I think that's what happened after watching it to him.
Jason Caldwell?
No, never mind.
Ron, I guess this week for TJ and Mike and you guys is one of the biggest things, just kind of getting together and finding out comfort level and what he likes in an offense, like you would do, you know, with, say, Bo early in the year. For him, is that a big deal this week to kind of find out, hey, what do you like in this situation, and kind of working together to kind of tailor the offense a little bit more towards him?
We kind of know what he likes, and that's been part of every single week. You know, you want to know what those guys are thinking, and that's part of their preparation. That's part of the process where you get quarterback and players' opinions on things. And most of the time it ties into what the coaches are thinking too. There's a lot of similarities there. But as far as TJ, we've already been doing that. You kind of know what he likes. And again, we're going to have to still run our offense and do things that we feel are going to be successful, and he's going to have to be able to execute those. And he's going to have done everything that we have in our game plan. It's just a matter of, you know, Bo's had more reps at it in practice and obviously more reps in the game. So TJ's seen it, he's done it. He's going to get all the reps, you know, all those starting reps this week, and have himself prepared from that standpoint. And then, yeah, certainly his opinion and some of the things that he sees as he studies the film, because each player is a little bit different, you know, in what they do like. And so it might be a little more of this, a little less of that. But at the end of the day, we still got to go operate our system and then execute it and make sure that, you know, everybody else has been in there playing. Those guys raise their level of play as well. So that's the thing. When somebody gets injured, I don't just think that player has to come in there and be the guy that brings everything. It's the guys that have been playing, the Nick Brahms, Kobe Hudson, Tank Bigsby's. Those guys that have been playing, those are the guys that have to raise their level of execution too. When you have a new player come in that hasn't had as many reps and has the same experience as some of those guys that are going to play for us in the game. So I'm counting on those guys to raise their level this week and their execution, make sure they're doing their job, so TJ can go in there and just operate and do what he's asked to do, and play quarterback the way we know he can, and go out there and get himself ready and prepared, and then come game day, go cut it loose and take advantage of your opportunity to play.
I guess Demetrius Davis, not sure about him. Grant Lloyd, would he be your backup this week, because he's been a guy that's been on the road and traveled every week? Is he number 2?
Yeah, he's been in that position there. So, you know, those guys, Grant's been there, and, you know, D's gotten some reps in there. Trey Lindsey's been doing a good job. So, you know, we'll work through that this week on what that's going to look like, and let those guys, get some reps in there. I mean, majority of the reps will go with TJ because you want to get as many as you can, and then we'll have our backup plan as well for those guys. And, they got to be able to execute it, and they're going to have had less than anybody between Bo and TJ, so they're going to have very few. And, again, they got to stay into it mentally. They got to be prepared and do some things extra on their own from a physical standpoint so they're ready to play. And, they got to now take on that role of being the backup and understanding what it is we're trying to accomplish. And Grant's done, Grant understands that. Grant knows Trey's really done a good job, in my opinion, preparing himself. And, our Sunday practices where some of those guys that don't play as much get a chance to go out there and compete a little bit. I think he's done a good job with that. And they've all stayed, as far as just physically preparing themselves, they've all gotten some scout reps. They've all gotten a few reps here and there. So they have thrown the football. They've done those things. They're just going to get a little bit more this week and be more in tuned to what the actual game plan is if they got to get in there and execute it.
Brian Matthews.
Hi, Brian. I want to ask you about the run game again this week. Losing Bo, does that affect how good you can be with that run game because the defense doesn't have to account for that position? And also, have you seen anything recently in the last few weeks that's given you some confidence that maybe that area that your team is starting to get better offensively?
Yeah, I think with Bo in there, the run game's different. And I think more so, when Bo would take off and run, as far as just a scramble and his ability to escape and do some of those things. Bo's obviously very athletic. TJ showed his wheels, in a few games as well. So he can pull it. He makes good decisions. A lot to me, as far as being a good runner, if you ever have that option, you're reading, it's being a good decision maker as well. You're trying to take advantage of the defense if you're running those type of plays. So we'll have those things in the game plan, and TJ can execute it. Changes a little bit on some of the other quarterback run game stuff that we've done, but there'll be opportunities for that still in this game plan from that standpoint. And then as far as, just are we taking that next step in the run game? We've improved, throughout the season in areas. I wouldn't say that we're taking the next step yet because we need to be more consistent. You got to run the ball and be able to get yourself in more manageable down and distances. We didn't do it in the second half in the last game. When you run the ball 2 times and it's still 3rd and 9, that's not very effective in that situation there. So we still have, in my opinion, a ways to go as far as just improving to where the level that we want to be at consistently in the run game. We've shown flashes. We've done some good things. And that's expected, but where we need to go is when we can run the ball the way we want to in those critical moments and get the yards that we need to sustain drives and keep ourselves on the field.
Coach, the last question today comes from Mark Murphy.
Yeah, could you talk about what you'd like to see from the special teams in the last couple of games? Also about the field goal that got blocked on Saturday. And then what can you tell me about your left-footed kicker, Ben Patton, as a field goal guy and a kickoff guy?
Yeah, as far as teams go, I mean, we've had penalties. I think they're questionable, but, for some reason, I mean, we got to be perfect on special teams and any type of return that we have. I think our guys are giving really good effort. I think guys are playing hard. But, we feel like, you got to be perfect in those areas if you're going to try to be aggressive and return it. And so from a field position standpoint, that hurts you when you have those penalties. And I thought we did some really good things and earned a lot of yards in this last game, but that came back to negate a lot of those returns. As far as, just Ben and all of our specialists, I mean, we're going to work through that this week. And, right-footed, left-footed, we've got guys that are both. So we'll work through our kicking game and who's going to kick off and who's going to kick field goals and who's going to do all those things with Anders being out. But we got to get through this week of practice before we get too far into who's doing what and where we're going to go as far as just our specialists go at this point with Anders being out. But Ben's done a good job. I like Ben. Ben works hard. He's prepared. I know if he's going to get his opportunity, And, if that's the case, then he's going to be ready to go, and he's going to go out there and practice well and put himself in a position mentally to go into the game and be ready to kick. And so, we'll see what that looks like this week in practice, and then we'll go from there.
Did you see what happened with the
Field goal.
Yes.
We got beat inside between the center and the guard there. We didn't position ourselves like we normally do. Poor technique. And when you have poor technique and the player across from you is going hard, that's going to result in a block. The kick was a little bit low in that situation as well, but, we gave up penetration, which you can't give up on special teams, and, that's a problem. And it comes back to just us technique and doing things consistently. But that was the result now, and it was a longer kick, but those type of issues shouldn't come up in protection, and just something that we didn't do a very good job of that they took advantage of.
All right, Coach.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.